Good afternoon. I am Steve. This is my Rock and Metal Life, and I am joined today by a friend of mine who goes by the name Bass Guitarist. And I guess what we're doing on the Rock and Metal Life channel is I'm inviting people on to talk about their favorite bands because today we're going to talk about Extreme. And Bass Guitarist is just about the only guy I think I've ever known who said Extreme is his favorite band. I know a lot of people that love that band, and I saw him headline a huge festival in Los Angeles about 4 or 5 years ago. They got a big fan base. Everybody knows who they are, but I kind of like, Eddie Money or somebody like that. Everybody knows who they are, but there aren't too many people that are in on the level of my friend Bass Guitarist. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad you thought of me. That's really an honor. It's great to be
Oh,
on your show, especially because
yeah.
I think you deserve a much broader audience, man. It kind of kills me to see this kind of content. I don't know. Maybe you just don't do enough self promotion or something. I don't know, but you're a
Well,
really humble. You're a humble guy. So
Well, I'm pretty lucky that I know guys that really do know how to play guitar. I mean, I got a lot of cool friends, so maybe something will get going there, having you guys on here. But hey, as we know, Extreme came back from a long layoff, and they came out with a record that's titled Six, and
mhm.
that was in the spring, I believe. It's been like 6 or 7 months. You went and saw them. Not only did you go see them, you saw them in Boston, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
And you did the VIP package and all that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I saw them, I think it was August 5th, in their hometown, Boston, Massachusetts. I had a VIP pass, and it was kind of interesting. I was not to downplay the experience. It was awesome through and through. The whole night was really something special. I was thinking that I was going to get to actually go back and get like a one-on-one meet and greet with Gary Sharon and Nuno Betancourt. That's not how it ended up being, but it was still kind of up close and personal. I think maybe there were 50 to 75 total people who got into the early VIP experience. And so basically that just consisted of you got to get in there while they were doing sound check. There was one big group photo, the guys on the stage and everybody else turning around facing the camera, and yeah, they played like 3 songs or 4 songs or whatever, and then there was kind of this little, you could kind of talk to them. I didn't really want to be that guy who shouted a lot of heckling from the stage or whatever, but I did get to exchange a few words with K Fig, the drummer, who's a person that I've actually worked with a little bit. I've taken a few drum lessons with Kevin. He's a really chill guy. Um, I was there with my brother, his wife, and my nephew, and it was just a great night. And they sent us home with one of these. These were the
All right. Well,
signed. So we did get that, and they signed all those that morning before the meet and greet, and of course a little laminate thing, and
all
then of course I got the hat. I'm not wearing the shirt because the shirt's in the laundry right now, but
right.
so yeah, it was really good. It was in a pretty large theater. Extreme is always they're a live band. They I've seen, I think that was my third time seeing them. They never leave anything to be desired. It's always they rock the house, they rock your socks off. I'm always just more impressed, just mainly by Gary Sharon. Actually, I think he's actually the highlight. Everybody goes to see Nuno, but Gary
Right.
really is kind of he really is just bombastic and just high energy and amazing on stage. And his voice is just, it's incredible. I think he's in his 60s now, and he's just still so amazing. But yeah, Living Color opening band, I
Okay.
was pretty impressed by them as well. They sounded really good, really high energy. Also live, they played only like 10 songs, but I think it was all of their, I guess more well known songs. I only went in there knowing like one song, but I left there um, kind of a fan of a couple more. There was the song "Elvis Is Dead." I really kind of fell in love
Okay.
with that song. That was a pretty rocking song. So yeah, just a great night overall.
Well, good. So, like, how long had it been since you seen them? It must have been a while because they've had downtime, right?
Yeah, I saw them on the Saudades du Rock tour 2008. that's kind of that album kind of, didn't really, I guess it didn't really do so hot. It kind of just fell under the radar. But that was a great show too. I forget who it was that opened for them. I think it was King's X that opened for them on that one. That's a band that's a blind spot for me. I don't, I didn't really know much about them. I knew they were kind of like maybe like a rock alternative progressive kind of band, kind of all rolled into one. But they were okay. They weren't really my genre. But and then before that, I think it was 2006. I saw Extreme in Boston. That was the first time me and my brother flew up there to see them. It was at the Bank of America Pavilion, and that was one of 3 tour dates they did on this kind of like comeback tour. They had been on hiatus for 12 years, and when they came back, they did a tour where they had the original drummer Paul Geary, and then they had Mike Mangini come out and play 2 or 3 of the songs from the album that he did with them, and then some members from Boston came out in the encore and played some songs with them, which was really awesome. They played some Boston songs.
Oh,
So if you combine all of those shows, I've seen every incarnation of Extreme, and I'm lucky to have seen all that, because a lot of the newer fans wouldn't have been able to see them with Paul Geary or Mike Mangini on drums, so that was pretty cool as well.
no, that's great. So did they play a lot of the new record when you saw them this time?
Yeah, I think they did maybe like 4 or 5 songs, but they hit or a lot of the sort of the crowd pleasers, the He-Man Woman Hater, It's a Monster. They do like this medley from like the first record. I think they do like Teacher's Pet, Kid Ego, but Rise. I think my favorite track from the new album, I think it's called #Rebel. I'm actually, it's funny because I have not done my due diligence as I should on the new record. I've heard all the songs on it. I have not sat down to like really try to analyze it. My brother has. His family's like crazy huge into it. His kids are just like extreme nuts. But and they just love it. But #Rebel, that was a good one. Rise, of course, I think that was the last song that they played, and of course that was like the big the big climax was that guitar solo. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just the
That record, it starts out with Rise, Rebel, and Banshee, and those are the 3 songs that they put out. They put them out there like all over the place, and everybody got to hear those. And those are like some smoking good songs. I think this record is a little bit more accessible, uh, because we know that they're like brilliant and they can be progressive and they can have all kinds of stuff going on because Nuno's so great and everything. But this one here, some of it's kind of like a little straightforward, but it seems like Nuno always comes through with like a brilliant guitar solo, not just showing how fast he can play or anything like that. That's what I got out of the new record more than anything. And it's, aside from those first 3 songs, it's so diverse. There's a whole
absolutely.
bunch of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily feel like it's in my wheelhouse, but it's good stuff, and you get the musicianship, and then like you said, Gary. I was going to ask. I wrote down. I was going to ask you how was Gary's voice, because on the record it's insane, and he's getting up in age, and he's like a screamer kind of, and he's got the rasp to it, and that kind of doesn't age well for a lot of our guys.
Yeah, and he's got the power behind it, man. Like it's a really it's a really not necessarily gritty, but he does have a softer side. But Nuno and Gary are very big with call and response harmonies. Nuno's a I've heard people say Nuno, and I think that this is just completely wrong, but so many people say that Nuno is a better singer than
Mhm.
Gary Sharon. And that's just, in my opinion, like, that's just such a ridiculous. I'm not saying Nuno's not a good singer,
Right.
but I mean, Nuno, Gary makes Nuno good. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Nuno can harmonize with Gary, and it's a perfect mesh. It's a perfect mix. You know, I mean, look no further than More Than Words. I mean, like their harmonies, you know, together on that song, the smash hit that it was largely, you know, because of their harmonies together, you know, and a song like Wholehearted, and that same interaction, that same, you know, harmony between the two voices. And actually, Pat Badger doesn't get enough credit, because Pat Badger's like the Michael Anthony of this band. If you listen to the harmonies, he's always the high part of those, you know, 3-part harmonies. He's like the Michael Anthony. He's hitting those super high notes when they sing those big choruses. But Gary, he has every bit the power vocally live that he does on the records. It's really incredible. So
Yeah, I think when people, if anybody wants to say Nuno's a better singer, I think what they're really saying is he's a surprisingly good singer, or, you know, hey, I'm just realizing he's a good singer. He is a good singer, but he's somewhat limited, and Gary's got everything.
yeah.
Gary's, you know, he can even do low, and then he can
Mm-hmm.
scream. And, you know, I'm telling you, there was a time when I thought he sounded like Sammy Hagar, like a little raspier Sammy Hagar, which that's a compliment. That's a huge compliment as far as a guy that can go up and has a lot of range. But yeah, Gary's really something else, and that's good. And then I did see him the one time down there in LA, and oh man, he's all over the stage, and he's like commanding the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh,
that's
he's a
great.
showman. There's no
Oh,
doubt. He's one of the top showmen. He's up there. I don't think I've ever seen anybody in the bands that I've seen live that's more of a just charismatic on stage than he is. Aside from maybe Bruce Dickinson, you know, I've seen Maiden 4 times. Bruce is, you know, A-list frontman, just like Gary. But Gary's just so underrated. You know, I think Bruce Dickinson, somebody like him, he's appropriately rated. He's not overrated. He's not underrated. I think he lives up to his hype. But Gary has just had this really odd career where, I don't know, I feel like he's like a really introverted guy. His lyrics are incredibly introspective. They're very socially aware. He's always like, you know, in one verse he seems to make one claim, and then in another verse he seems to like question it. You know, I always feel like him personally, like in his personal life, I get the feeling that he feels like torn between sort of the rock and roll world and his religious faith, which I believe he's a pretty devout Catholic. So I know that he's been on shows like Bill O'Reilly, where he's talked about his pro-life stances and things like that. He's a pretty deep guy, and he's a pretty private guy, and you can tell that he, like, his persona on stage, it's like, you know, it's like they said about like Freddie Mercury or other, you know, charismatic frontmen of the past, where they kind of get that side of them out on stage, but off stage they're just like a completely different person. But Gary's really interesting, and I think that's the reason he fits Extreme, because Extreme is a band that doesn't try to do the same thing twice. They didn't try to fit into the hair metal mold. They had that sound, you know, in their in their peak heyday or whatever, in their golden years. But and when grunge came around, they didn't just try to cop the grunge sound. You know, they tried to do their own thing with it. And they're always like, you know, you were talking about Nuno always throws some kind of very interesting guitar solo in there. Nuno is one of those guys where he really does try to invent new sounds and new tones and new ways of playing. Like you said, he's not just trying to show how technical and fast he is. He's trying to come up with new ways of playing and new ways of sounding. Like the tone on this album is something completely new. Like the effects that he uses on the amp, the sort of like the phasing and the sort of the, I always feel like I kind of hear like an octave pedal or something. And not trying to cop some kind of like generic like rock glam metal sound. It's definitely something unique. And Gary being in Van Halen, I think that's the reason he didn't last very long, is because he just didn't really have that sort of sex, drugs, and rock and roll persona like the Diamond Dave. You know, which is neither good nor bad. But I mean, extreme is like if you take um, the technical, prowess and the the riffing and the soloing and all of that brilliance from Van Halen. But if you put it into a band that's kind of like more like progressive, then you have extreme. So I think Gary's right at home in extreme, and I think that they went on their hiatuses for, Nuno tried to do his solo thing, and they all just kind of flailed around for 12 years, and then they realized, hey man, this is what we should be doing. We're all meant for each other. We're meant to be in extreme. So
Yeah, and the proof's in the record, because one of the things I wrote down is, I give just about everything a shot from all my legacy bands. And like, say, the Scorpions have a fairly new record. It's probably been a year, and it's pretty good. I think everybody that likes the Scorpions would say, okay, yeah, that's good. That's a good Scorpions record. And same with Tesla and a whole bunch of other bands that I like. But none of that stuff is as fresh as this. This sounds like these guys are operating full speed. They don't care what year or what decade it is. These are the ideas that they had, and they're good ideas, and they really, really deliver on these. And the record, like I said, it starts out with that 1, 2, 3 punch of the heavy stuff, and then I look at the track list, and it ends, they've got like a true ballad. They got something that's in between, right after Banshee, and then it ends with some kind of I don't want to say goofy stuff, but it's kind of lighthearted stuff. Beautiful Girls and Here's to the Losers. And Here's to the Losers is a really good, uh, it's a cool thing about, hey, everybody's dropped the ball, everybody's failed, everybody's, missed the shot. It's kind of like sports centric. And hey, you're fine. Everybody does that. Everybody does it and gets better, and you're okay. And it's kind of weird. It's like such a stark contrast that the record started so heavy, but I think that's brilliant. I think that's what I want from them. You know what I'm saying? I want them to come and grab me at the beginning, and they don't have to worry about losing me, because there's so much that they do that's so interesting, and it's an easy record to listen to for me.
yeah, outside of the debut album, Extreme has always done that. They've always, because like if you take Porno Graffiti, you have their biggest smash hit, More Than Words. And when that song was released, it was released as a single. The album prior to that did not sell very well. It did not sell on the heavy metal rock stuff that was on it. It sold because of that single. And it was put out, and it became like this kind of like cheesy wedding song or whatever, or just some like ballad that made girls cry or whatever. But people like that went to number one, and it became a platinum selling record, and people were going to the music store saying, hey, we want we want this song, and people were pointing them to the metal section, and people were like, no, there must be some mistake, because they thought that every other song on the album was going to be like an Everly Brothers type tune.
Yeah.
But and people were actually funnily famously returning that album because it wasn't filled with those types of songs. So Extreme has always really challenged their audience. Extreme had all of the talent and the ability to be mega stars, Motley Crue, Poison level if they wanted to, but they just Nuno always wanted to do something different. So you had Porno Graffiti, and after that, Three Sides to Every Story. I'm not sure if you've ever sat and listened to that album, but you were talking about coming out with the 1, 2, 3 punch hard rock and roll metal stuff, and then branching off into very different territory later on. And that's sort of what that album does. You've got the openers like Warheads and Color Me Blind and Rest in Peace, Political Calamity, just metal songs with heavy riffs and solos and shredding and all the flashy stuff and rock and roll. And then you go into tunes like Tragic Comic, which is just this like sweet love ballad, with drums, a little bit more up tempo than More Than Words. And then towards the end of the album, you've got like a 70-piece orchestra, and you've got these like very introspective, religious kind of like songs about faith, about God, stuff like that. Definitely, which Nuno always plays maybe pulls his weight more throughout every aspect of Extreme's music, but it seems like that last section was definitely more Gary Sharon, sort of his, his brainchild or whatever. And then that reminds me, I would say that this album, if I was going to compare it to any other, the new one, Six, if I was going to compare it to anything, would be more like a Three Sides, because it does start off with the heavy hard rock and stuff. It really gets you hooked. And then like you said, it goes into some very different territory. And I think all of it's well done. I don't think that they went for something that they, they couldn't execute. It was all very well done. It just shows their desire to. I look at it as they're kind of like being today's Led Zeppelin. I think that years from now we gotta have a band that kind of like gives rock and roll a kick in the ass, and I think that this album translates it. They managed to reinvent themselves, but still maintain who they are, like maintain their identity. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
reinvent themselves in a way that appeals to the younger generation, because I've seen so many little kids who, like my brother's kids, for example, are just obsessed with this new Extreme album. So
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, that's all I'm doing here. Like the only reason I even have a YouTube channel is I want to talk about this stuff, and I see the video, like the video for Rise, and you know, I think I like the concept. It's a funny thing with the young kids, trying to be rockers and all that.
mm-hmm.
That's great. I think it's hilarious. But when you're watching, more so than the kids, when you're watching Extreme, man, I need my rock stars. Okay. I need my people that know what they're doing, that like earned their stripes, weren't put in front of me. Hey, dude, this is what you're supposed to like. This is, oh, you're a rock guy. This is rock. And it's Greta Van Fleet and I like it. But I don't really have a connection like I do with Extreme, and I like Dirty Honey. I like the songs that they play. I don't really know their backstory. I don't know where they came from. I can't say that, hey, I went and saw Iron Maiden and Dirty Honey open, and I didn't know who they were, but I really liked them. I don't have any of that. These other bands just kind of like pop up out of nowhere. When Extreme shows back up after all these years and they look like that and they sound like that, I mean, man, that's what I need, I mean, they're delivering, exactly what I want, exactly what I need to hear.
Yeah, you do have to kind of like maintain that little touch of nostalgia, in my opinion. It's kind of like, keep that little bit of tradition, but you have to reinvent it. You have to pass the torch down. You have to come up with a new standard. You know what I mean? In 1978, that was laid down by Eddie Van Halen, and it was done, in different, years and eras prior to that as well. But we haven't had that for the longest time, and I don't know if that's what Extreme is trying to do, but I think what they're doing, and Extreme may not have the brand recognition to necessarily be a band that is like the new Led Zeppelin or whatever, but they are. People would be shocked the extent to which Extreme is beloved by musicians, but for totally different reasons than like somebody who, like normal fans who are not musicians. Your average person knows Extreme because of More Than Words, because that was probably what they danced to at their wedding or whatever, like my brother, for example. Um, but amongst musicians, people admire Nuno Bettencourt for his hard rock guitar, and Gary Sharon for being, just one of the greatest rock frontmen, really. So, like when you're talking about I guess what I'm trying to say is like, in what sense are we saying they're like the new Led Zeppelin? I guess in the sense that I'm trying to say it is, they're kind of that to musicians. There's a lot more younger musicians today who cite Extreme as an influence, and Nuno Bettencourt is a guitar influence. And Nuno is a lot more popular of a guitar player amongst the guitar player community today than he was when I was in high school, when I was a kid. They as band were basically unheard of because they were a defunct band and had been for many years. And that's not what the kids were listening to. That's not what the young guys getting into guitar player were listening to. But now Extreme is kind of like had a resurgence and resurfaced, and they're, thanks to the internet, thanks to YouTube, Nuno is much more well known. He's much more influential, and so is the band in general. So,
well, we talk in this house. We talk about all the time about, you know, is this the end? You know, are we on the last leg? You know, is it going to die out when people my age and older die out? And I hope not. I worry about a couple of things, like say, you know, for example, like Slash. That is the image of a rock star. Okay, the top hat and the hair and
yes.
everything. That's great. I think it's fantastic and good for him. And you know, I'm glad he has the notoriety. But he is a brilliant guitar player. Does everybody know that? I hope so. You know, now I get it that to be mega popular and mega successful, okay, you're bringing in the casuals, you're bringing in the people that aren't really in, but hey, you know, they got the familiarity. Okay, that's fine. But like what you say about Nuno being respected as a guitar player, you know, I wonder what that industry is like. I wonder, you know, I mean, I don't care. I saw something the other day that said keyboards outsell, or no, was it turntables outsell guitars like 2 to 1 or something like that. Fine, that's fine with me. I don't care. All I care about is what's going on in the guitar community, and I hope it's like it was, you know, when in the 80s and into the 90s. I hope everybody's out there trying to get better and comparing notes, and you know the gear is being developed and improved upon. I don't know. You would probably know that better than me. Um, I hope that culture is still there, and I hope it's strong enough to carry forward. Do you have an idea that it is or isn't?
I mean, I don't. I mean, it's always been there. You know, as long as I've been alive, there's always been, you know, wherever there's a music scene, there's always people. There's always some people trying to form rock bands, and you know, if you go to Nashville, if you go to any of the shops, you know, you're gonna run into young rockers. You know, I've never really seen it show any signs of fully dying. I mean, we have a thing called the internet now, and you know, as I said before, um, for a band like Extreme to kind of rise from the ashes. I never thought that Extreme would resurface again. When I was a kid, Extreme was a defunct band. They were a band that I knew about because of my brother, because he turned me on to them. And
Okay.
the first Extreme song I ever heard was this live bootleg of them Play That Funky Music White Boy by Wild
Okay.
Cherry. They were doing their own version of it.
Okay.
I just was blown away by Nuno's guitar playing. And then I was like, you know, asked my brother, who's this band? And he's like, we went on this road trip and he brought some CDs and we just jammed out to him. And I just fell in love with Extreme, mainly Nuno's guitar playing. That's what made me want to play. But I'm like, who are these guys? Why are they not still around? Why are they not still famous? You know? And my brother was like, well, they've been broke up for years, and and they just seemed like something that would never, return again. And I was, I told you about that, the show I went to in Boston, the first one, when they did that reunion tour, the 3-date reunion tour. They had been on hiatus for 12 years. I couldn't believe that was happening. I remember I was in homeroom in high school. I was a freshman, and I think I was 15 years old or so, and 14, and I remember calling my brother as soon as I got home that I had read that Extreme is doing shows, and he looked it up and he booked us plane tickets immediately. So we went to see that, and it wasn't but 2 years after that they came out with the So Dodged to Rock album and reformed, and Extreme was back, but they didn't really come back with a vengeance on that. that album or that tour. That album was pretty, you know, pretty fairly middling, when it comes to its response. I think they were really surprised, really shocked by the success of Six, just because they really did kind of reinvent themselves in a really successful way that really went well for them. But I guess to land my plane here, um, for Extreme, a band like Extreme, to come back and to become as influential as they have in the way that I've personally seen it, with young kids and with just looking on the internet. I mean, there's so much about them now that like they are more popular now, arguably. I mean, not like, radio MTV popular like they were in their heyday, for
Yeah.
that one or couple songs, but just in general, their name getting back out there. This younger generation, like I said, knows them, more than my generation did. So for that to happen gives me hope that, I don't think we're seeing the end days of rock. I think there's, there's forces at play that, they don't, they want certain things getting out there and certain things not. But
Right.
the flip side of that is, as I think, your son on Loud Sound Epicenter, he talks about a lot, the lack of a monoculture. That can be kind of a good thing and a bad thing. The way I see it, it's bad in that there's not like a main cultural theme that's kind of tying everybody together. Everybody's split into their own little niche hobby or music tastes or activities that they like to do. But at the same time, that's a way to ensure that these things never really die, because the diehards now are in control of these things, like you and me. We're the ones, out there talking about this stuff and doing podcasts and making music and everything. So it's in the hands of the diehards, the fans. We're now the ones carrying the torch. So I think that can only be a good thing at the end of the day. So
Well, yeah.
that's where I see it.
One thing that just makes it so hard for me to get a good read on it, when I sit here on any of these videos and I talk about, I go over the career of Motley Crue or anybody, and I mention like platinum albums, okay, they went double platinum, 3 times platinum. Okay, I know while I'm saying it, I understand completely. I'm talking about something way in the past. I mean, platinum albums as a measure of how successful a band was, gold, platinum, or didn't chart, or like today, if Iron Maiden comes out with Shinjitsu and it's their highest charting album since Fear of the Dark or whatever, I'm just making all that up. But when I hear something like that, I don't even know what that means. They came in at number 28 on the US rock mainstream, whatever chart. I don't know what a chart. I don't know how they're measuring sales. I don't know, I don't know how downloads are. I heard way back when that an album sale is now like 10 units of anything off of one record. So if 10 people buy the single, that's an album sale.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, if one person bought the whole thing. I don't know if that's even true anymore. I have no idea. But again, I can't measure success other than like what you're saying. I remember like say 15 years ago, like when I was taking Ace to the shows and he was little, and he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
the only one, like say when he was 10 years old, there was other people doing that. Okay. Well, now he's in his 20s. And when I go to the shows and I see that around, the whole arena is, it's not just people dragging their little kids because I like it, so maybe you'll like it. They're older now and they want to see it and they want to hear it and they're into it. And in my case, Ace knows more about a lot of the stuff than I do, and I was there,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that because he, if he when he wanted to learn about Black Sabbath, he stayed up all night and listened to all of the Ozzy records and told me all about it the next day. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was kind of, I don't know what the word is. I was pretty driven, but I wasn't that driven. You know, I
Well, I
had
mean,
boundaries.
your sources back then, I mean, you didn't have Wikipedia, you didn't have all these
Right.
articles to look up. You had magazines, but and whatever. But I mean, your experience was different. It was live and in person.
Yeah.
You were going to you're going to give your version of the story, seeing these things, which is what you're doing. That's what this channel is about. But with Ace, he's, he's looking at the historical record here, and he's seeing what critics have written. He's seeing, what things that have been documented about the band, their tours, where they visited on all these tours. And, and he said he's, kind of autistically analyzed all that. And I used to do that too. And so it is a different relationship. It's a very different relationship to that period, having lived through it, been there, and experienced it. And somebody, who's young, I mean, even my age, I'm a little bit older than Ace, but I had to like read about stuff. And then sometimes you go to shows and you kind of live just a chunk of it, and it kind of like you remember something that you read and you're like, oh, okay, this must have been what that was like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, another thing too, going back to like basically the guitar culture, I grew up, from whatever, 8th grade on, I was reading like Cream magazine, Hit Parader magazine, that kind of stuff. And, then, years later, I joined the military, and I just happened to get in, stationed somewhere with a department where like 4 guys played guitar. And I was like, I don't know what I thought. I thought Edward Van Halen was born with one. I thought like those guys do that, and then I knew you could go buy one, but who does that? I just it was just like so out of the realm of possibility to me, and I started buying the guitar magazines, like Guitar Player, Guitar for the Practicing Musician, and then like Cream magazine. They're interviewing David Lee Roth or Don Dokken, and it's like, tell us about the craziest thing that happened on that last tour. Oh man, St. Louis is just nuts, And then the guitar magazines, they're talking about building the songs. They're talking about technique, and oh man, George Lynch, Dokken was on a tour with, whoever, like Rat, and Warren DeMartini showed him this, and then now, that stuff was fascinating to me. I didn't even understand it, but I wanted to hear that much more than I wanted to know what's Vince Neil's favorite color, or what's their favorite food and all that. And so it's nice to see the people at the shows, but I also hope that there's a big enough faction that are like getting up front and going over to the guitar guy's side and checking out to see if they can see his pedals, and all that. So I hope that's alive and well,
Oh yeah, totally. I think if anything is going to survive, it's going to be that aspect. It seems like the world of guitar has been kind of taken over by like the tinkerers. The people who are not the rock stars are kind of like the guy who just likes to build amp circuits in his shop and build guitars or work on guitars or whatever. It's a huge community of that now. It seems like all these good, like the average guitar player now is like a hobbyist, or whatever, which is fine, but yeah, I mean, with with the way, I mean, honestly, I don't even know. I don't really, I guess I just don't keep up with trends in music anymore. I know what I like, and I stick to that. And I mean, there is a lot of variety in today's music in general. You kind of get exposed to, like, whether you're just watching TV or just watching a video or whatever, you're getting exposed to a lot of different styles and influences anyway. So like, all that stuff's there when you need to tap into it. But I don't know that, I don't know. I don't know if like rock is, I think rock is here to stay. I think that, there's always going to be, high testosterone young men who want to, keep it going, and they're looking for something different than rap or hip hop,
Yeah, and I've finally come around, because I've been scared to death that the sky has fallen for probably like 20 years now, and I've come around to the fact that, like what we're saying here, yes, there is the interest. Yes, there's always going to be people that are, you're going to have the people that are bedazzled by the rock star imagery. And then you're also going to have the people that, the artists or the people that are creative that want to get involved on that level. And that being the case, we do have with YouTube and everything else, and all the social media where you can share it, we do have the infrastructure and the wherewithal to keep it going. And it doesn't have to be keeping it going, on the gold and platinum standard, or on the, the video countdown, on some terrestrial TV station. It doesn't have to be that.
Though that would be cool. I mean, if somebody could revive that kind of energy, I've told Ace, and I know he's not interested in that. He's like more of a writer or whatever, but like he should do it, man. He should make the Loud Sound Epicenter, or Rock and Metal Life should be like the new Headbangers Ball. You got to start that. You could start like a 24-hour channel that just, you have your Metal Mania, and then you have like Rock Fest, and you have all these different things that like, VH1 used to do or whatever. But
see, I wish we could play the songs and not have them pulled down copyright. I would love to do the Extreme record, me and you right now, and track by track. And I don't know how, because I know there's a Van Halen podcast that I watch, and they pick a song and they do the song, and I guess it's okay. And I'm totally showing my age here, because
it's like fair use. If, like, for example, if I wanted to make a tutorial on how to play a song, I could use the song because it's fair use. It's for like instructional purposes, I believe. I don't know. It just depends on the band, the artist, who owns the rights to their songs. Some of them allow you to use it. They'll just YouTube will, they'll do a check on like, your audio or whatever, and then they'll either censor it, or they will fill in all the like credits or whatever in your description of your video, that has all that or whatever, and you can use it. I did the Extreme review of the song Rise, and I had no problem at all.
Okay, well then maybe those guys are cool, because see, my only brush I had with this was I went to an LA gun show, and when the show, their intro, everybody does some song of their heroes or whatever when they enter now, and they did Diary of a Madman. Tracy Guns has been doing that, like even in his non-LA Guns bands. So the lights go down and they play the intro to Diary of a Madman, and then at a certain point the curtain drops and there's LA Guns, and I put all that up there, and it got pulled down almost right away. And I'm sitting here because I'm, I am, whoever's watching this, I am an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing, and it should be obvious. But I didn't understand why. And Ace wasn't around. I couldn't ask him, what happened? Why'd they copyright that? Because I'm sitting there, I filmed Scorpion songs, the whole song in concert, and that's okay. And I couldn't figure it out. Why is, what got pulled down? And somebody in the comments of somewhere told me, he goes, oh, you can't do the recorded thing. The band's cool with you. LA Guns is cool with you doing the live, but Sharon Osbourne is not going to let you put. And I was like, really? So I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know where the line is drawn. It really just comes down to who owns it, and do they want you to use it or do they not? Or do they? But I mean, I know that there's people that just they don't. They don't even try it. I don't really do that kind of stuff either. I just had seen, the reason I did the Rise review was because I had seen other people do it, and I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So I just stuck it up there and I hope for the best. And I was like, well, if they pull it down, they pull it down. It didn't really take me all that long to make. I just kind of turned on a recording session and just kind of went for it. But all I know is that if you are in like teaching or whatever, if I'm teaching you how to play a song on guitar, that's fair use. So it's fine under those circumstances. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of crazy. I think that guy Rick Beato. Yeah, I don't know if he really rails on that really hard. Like he's constantly getting strikes on his YouTube channel. That's one of his biggest issues, the whole copyright thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to link your YouTube channel in the description here. I want to talk a little bit. We mentioned, your name is Bass Guitarist. We talk about your music.
Mhm.
Uh, Tell me what you got going on lately. I know you've been working on some stuff. Um, how's that going for you?
Okay, so the whole music thing, I've set it aside for a little while because I'm pursuing a career as a pilot. Sure I've told you about that.
Exactly.
I say what?
I said you got some good videos on your channel.
Yeah. So I'm doing that, but here's the thing, and I'm not just lying. I wouldn't say this if it weren't true. I still very much consider myself first and foremost a guitar player, a musician. Um, I actually know a guy who is he's an airline pilot, and it has actually helped him pursue his dreams of music. He recently recorded a album at Abbey Road Studio.
Oh wow.
He has a big band. He tours. I think he's semi-retired. He's an older gentleman, but he flies for the airlines part time. But I've been flying since I was 17. I grew up in a family that flew planes. My dad was a pilot, so um, I long story short, a few months ago, I ran into this older gentleman that I knew when I was a kid. He actually took me for my first and only flight that I've ever been in a helicopter.
Ooh.
A friend of the family. He's retired. He used to be a flight instructor. He had a career as a pilot, and he was urging me because I had my private pilot license. He said you should go get your commercial, and you should go into the airlines because there's such a pilot shortage. And so I thought, well, you know, I've really been dragging my feet so far in life. I've really been looking for a career that I knew that um, I was well suited for, that I knew that I could see through, that I knew I could accomplish. And so I decided to just, dive right into the whole pilot thing. I actually just recently purchased an aircraft to use it to finish my training and to earn an income and build hours and stuff. So I really dove headfirst in the pilot thing. But once that sort of gets into a routine, I have every intention of diving right back into the music stuff because I do have a lot of original stuff recorded, not full things, but some of them could very easily be finished with just a little bit of a little bit of hard work and some time. So there is stuff behind the scenes, and I definitely plan very sooner rather than later to return with a vengeance as bass guitarist and finally get all of my stuff out there. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's it. Good to hear. And I hope people follow the link. I'm going to put it in there. You've got some good videos up there, from over the last few years of just playing the guitar, and you'll see the kind of level that you're on. You're a killer guitarist, man. I'm telling you, you're
Thank you.
amazing. And the airplane videos are badass. Keep doing those, man. Those.
Yeah, so a little bit on that. I am doing this kind of like fun gag on the side. It's nothing serious, but I started, I created a different channel for that as well. And I'm just going to be making these kind of like fun, lighthearted flying video. It's really just for fun. If you want to pop that in there, that's fine. If not, no big deal. But yeah, everything that I upload on that, I'm also going to put on the Bass Guitarist channel as well.
Okay.
So you can see all my flying content there. So that channel is still active, and pretty soon I hope I'm gonna do my best to get the guitar, at least the shred, just like the stuff that I've been doing before, content rolling again. But eventually there will be original tunes. I really want to put the band together. I just never really wanted to be like no offense to like Joe Satriani or anything. I just didn't want to be like a Joe Satriani, like the whole thing's just being like a guitar guy. I guess I'm kind of like Nuno or Eddie in that way. I kind of wanted to be just a guy in a band. I wanted to have the whole thing because I guess it's just, I don't know what kind of psychology goes into that, but it's like I don't feel legitimate if I'm not good enough to be in a band. You know what I mean? Or if like if I'm not good enough to create a band. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
it's totally personal choice, you know, and I mean, you know, making music, like when we were talking to Chris last week, he loves making his music, and I'm glad he's doing it. I'm glad he's putting it out there. Um, I get what you're saying too. I mean, that's you know, I mean, you got to be itching to play live, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, maybe I just need to come off of that and just like, not let that stop me because I mean, like you said, these other guys, they're not letting that stop them, they're not letting. I find that it's, you were asking him about why, why are you not in a band? Why did you decide to go, the solo route like you're going? And a lot of what he said kind of, I can relate to a lot of that. I live in a pretty rural, remote area. There's no
right.
options around here. I'd have to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to Nashville or beyond to rehearse, to even start a band. So I would kind of have to go the whole like one man band thing and just like create a brand. And I know I actually know many people who do that. Most of the rock metal musicians I know who actually have quote unquote bands now, um, that's the band is really just one guy, and they're they have their main instrument or they sing. I don't really sing. I may be kind of like a Nuno guy. I may be able to do like some backing vocals and stuff like that. Not strong, but I could do it maybe if I was asked to. But I'm definitely not a front man or a singer. I'm definitely just like the guitar guy. But um, if I everything that I've recorded, it's always been me playing guitar. It's always been me playing bass. Um, I don't use any like bass plugins or like drum pads or anything. I do, and I have this electronic drum set over here, this Alesis. What I do is I will play a beat, and then I will because I'm not really that great of a drummer. Don't really, my timing's not good. So I'll play the beat and then I'll quantize it. And they have this tool where you can quantize it
Yeah,
in your DAW, and then I'll get it on time and everything. But it is me playing the drums, So,
yeah,
um,
yeah, definitely.
but that's
Yeah,
how that's how
I just, I mean, I support all you guys, and I think each of you guys got to do whatever you need to do, and I support you guys. I can't even tell you how much. You've heard me play guitar. I can't help you any, right? I need your help, right?
you're better than you give yourself credit for.
Yeah. Hey, it's been going really good the last week or so, but I hesitate to say that because when I show you, you might think, oh, that's better,
Well, see,
but
the thing is when you start practicing something more advanced, you're
yeah,
gonna sound like you don't know what you're doing. So I mean, but
exactly.
go back to basics a little bit. You got to kind of play for pleasure and fun too. You have to play the stuff that makes you feel good, because that makes you feel like you know,
Yeah.
you haven't wasted your time. You know what I mean? And that's what guitar is all about anyway. It's all about enjoying it, and having fun and playing what you want to play.
Yeah,
So
it definitely takes confidence, that I kind of don't have because I can see it, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh yeah, if I just, keep doing this, it'll work. And it does pay off. If I continue to do it, it does pay off. But I still back here, I got that, man, this is hard, but and you've got the right attitude, you're just busting through that barrier like it wasn't even there.
well, the thing is, at the stage you're at life, I mean, what do you really have to lose other than just go for it?
Yep.
Don't,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the
Just
thing. I want to take one last crack at it before, because I already have, my hands are kind of, there's some stuff I can't really do. And I you know,
mhm.
I don't really get cramps or whatever, but I'm just not flexible like I used to be. But,
Yeah,
but hey, I mean, everybody has to deal with that. But again, I just, I can't tell you how much I support you guys that are doing whatever you're doing because it's so important. Like Chris was saying, if there's only like 3 people in there watching him, he gives the big show. Oh man, bravo. I couldn't do that. Like when somebody walks by, my wife or my son walks by while I'm playing, I feel like, oh God,
mhm.
they're hearing me. That's why I don't share some of these videos out because people will see me and hear me. You know what I mean? I don't have the Chad mentality.
If you start, you just, pick an AC/DC song and learn it, and, post yourself doing a cover of it. Like, anything to break through, the sort of trepidation you have when people walk by. I have that too. Like, I'm not without that. I find that awkward silence gets to me more than like a roaring crowd. Like, I find it easier if, like, if I go on stage and everybody's like, you can hear a pin drop, I just like talk, guys, scream, shout, enough with the awkward silence, because I can't, if everybody's just like focusing on me, the spotlight's on me, that's when I choke. It's like when you go into a quiet music store and you plug up to an amp and you sit down, you're like, okay, everybody in here's just like shopping and they're really quiet and they're going to hear me play. And it's just going to be really cringe and really awkward. That's what makes me like unable to play. That makes me shiver and shake, But the roaring crowd, when everybody's like feeling it, when they give you something to work off of, I have no problem with that. So
That's excellent. That's good. Well, you know what? I'm going to wrap it up here. That was a good discussion. I want everybody that watched any part of this video, listen to the Extreme record, listen to the new one 6, and then go back through the catalog. I'm going to do the 3 sides. I've been meaning to do that for the longest time. But yeah, and everybody follow the links. Check out Bass Guitarist. Check him out playing a guitar. Check him out flying a plane, landing a plane. It's cool. So, yeah, thanks for coming by. Definitely do it again in the future, I would hope, and we got more subjects we can cover.
definitely.
All right, take it easy, man.
Thank you.